Finding a blood-stained Prada briefcase under a rusted dumpster on Wabash Avenue wasn't on Ashley Lawson's Tuesday agenda. Struggling to feed her son and dodge a deadbeat ex, this exhausted, heavy-set diner waitress merely wanted peace. Instead, returning that bag dropped her directly into a lethal Chicago syndicate. Tuesday nights at Daly's restaurant in Woodlawn were notorious for their crushing, soul-draining exhaustion. Ashley Lawson pushed through the swinging kitchen doors, balancing 3 trays of deep-dish pizza and greasy fries. At 240 pounds, her 5'4" frame absorbed every brutal hour of her double shift. Her thick thighs chafed beneath the faded pink fabric of her uniform, and her ankles swelled painfully over the edges of her cheap, knock-off orthopedic sneakers. Society had long ago decided that women like Ashley, chubby, exhausted, and visibly poor, were entirely invisible. Most days, she preferred it that way. Visibility usually meant trouble. It meant her deadbeat ex-husband, Gregory Harrison, showing up drunk to demand her tip money. It meant the pitying stares of the wealthy patrons who slummed it at the diner for an authentic Chicago late-night meal. Ashley just wanted to finish her shift, collect her $42 in crumpled singles, and go home to her 4-year-old son Leo. Taking out the trash was the final hurdle. The alleyway behind Daly's was a narrow, foul-smelling corridor that backed up against the elevated train tracks. As the L train roared overhead, vibrating the brick walls, Ashley hoisted the heavy black garbage bag into the rusted industrial dumpster. When she turned to leave, her toe caught on something heavy, nearly sending her sprawling onto the wet pavement. Cursing under her breath, Ashley squinted into the gloom. Lodged between a stack of broken wooden pallets and the brick wall was a sleek, black leather briefcase. Even in the dim glow of the flickering sodium street lamp, the bag looked absurdly expensive. It was a custom Prada attaché, the kind of luggage carried by the corporate titans on the Magnificent Mile, not something you found soaking in puddle water in Woodlawn. Ashley knelt, her knees popping in protest. When her fingers brushed the handle, a sickeningly sticky, warm sensation coated her skin. She yanked her hand back with a gasp. Under the amber street lamp, her fingers were coated in fresh crimson blood. Panic seized her chest. Her immediate instinct was to run, to leave the bag right where it was and lock herself inside the diner. But desperation was a powerful motivator. Gregory had drained her bank account 2 weeks ago, leaving her with an eviction notice taped to the door of her cramped Pilsen apartment. If some rich stockbroker had dropped his laptop or his wallet in a mugging, maybe there was a cash reward. Hands trembling, Ashley wiped her bloody fingers on her apron and pressed the dual brass latches. They snapped open with a heavy, satisfying click. Inside, there was no laptop. Instead, the briefcase was packed with neatly stacked rows of $100 bills. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. Beneath the cash lay a heavy gold Rolex Daytona, a burner cell phone, and a thick, black leather ledger. Ashley's heart hammered against her ribs like a trapped bird. She reached out, her thick fingers tracing the edge of the ledger. She opened it to a random page. It wasn't a corporate accounting book. It was a meticulously handwritten list of payments. Real, recognizable names leaped off the page. Alderman Jenkins, $50,000, cleared. Cook County Judge Abernathy, $150,000, pending. Lower Wacker Transit Union, $80,000. This wasn't a stockbroker's bag. This was a Mafia payroll. Before she could slam the briefcase shut, the burner phone nestled inside the cash suddenly illuminated, vibrating violently against the leather interior. Unknown caller. Ashley stared at the glowing screen. If she took the money and ran, they would find her. Men who kept ledgers of corrupted judges did not simply write off lost briefcases. They hunted. They killed. She thought of little Leo sleeping in his crib. She couldn't risk his life for this cursed money. Taking a deep, shuddering breath, her plump fingers swiped the green answer icon. She lifted the phone to her ear. "If you are breathing," a voice murmured through the receiver. It was a male voice, deep, gravelly, and terrifyingly calm. "It is only because I have not yet found you. You have exactly 10 seconds to tell me who you work for before I authorize the hit." I don't work for anyone," Ashley stammered, her voice cracking. "I work at a diner. I take orders. I just found your bag." Silence stretched over the line. The L train rumbled past again, masking the sound of Ashley's frantic breathing. "A diner?" the man repeated, the lethal edge in his tone shifting slightly to profound confusion. "Yes," Ashley whispered, tears of sheer terror pricking her eyes. "My name is Ashley Lawson. I'm taking out the trash at Daly's restaurant on 63rd. I stepped on it. There's blood on the handle. Please, I haven't taken a single dime. I just want to give it back. I have a little boy. Please don't hurt us." Thousands of miles away from the grimy alley, standing on the balcony of a multi-million-dollar penthouse at the St. Regis, Chicago, Desmond Costello narrowed his dark eyes. Desmond was the undisputed head of the Costello Syndicate, a ruthless empire that controlled the city's underground ports. His best courier had been ambushed and slaughtered an hour ago by the rival Moretti family. Desmond had expected to hear the arrogant voice of a Moretti captain when he called the tracker phone. Instead, he was listening to a terrified, weeping mother who sounded entirely genuine. "Ashley Lawson," Desmond said, tasting the syllables of her name. He signaled to his lieutenant, a scarred, broad-shouldered man named Matteo, and pointed to his watch. Matteo immediately began tracing the burner phone's GPS. "Stay exactly where you are, Ashley. Lock the briefcase. Go inside your diner, lock the back door, and wait in the kitchen. Do not speak to anyone. My men will be there in 10 minutes. "Okay," she sobbed. "Okay. I promise." "If you are lying to me, Ashley," Desmond warned softly, "there isn't a hole in Chicago deep enough to hide you." "I'm not lying," she cried. "Just come get it." Thursday evening arrived with a suffocating blanket of humidity over Chicago. It had been 48 hours since heavily armed men in sharp suits had quietly entered the diner, taken the Prada briefcase, and handed Ashley a sleek black envelope containing $5,000 in crisp bills, along with a business card that simply read, "Gibson's Bar and Steakhouse. VIP Room 4, 8 p.m. Thursday." Ashley stood before the cracked mirror in her tiny bathroom, desperately trying to make herself look presentable. The $5,000 had saved her from eviction, but she hadn't dared spend a penny on herself. She was wearing her only nice dress, a shapeless navy blue polyester shift that clung too tightly to her broad waist and heavy bust. She tried to smooth down her frizzy brown hair, feeling a wave of intense self-loathing. She was about to meet the most dangerous man in the city, the man whose name had been whispered in hushed, terrified tones by the detectives who occasionally ate at her diner. Desmond Costello. She felt utterly ridiculous. A fat, exhausted single mother marching into an elite steakhouse where the women looked like starved runway models. After kissing Leo goodbye and paying her neighbor, Mrs. Higgins, $40 to watch him, Ashley took the bus to the Gold Coast neighborhood. Rush Street was glittering with wealth. Ferraris and armored Escalades lined the curb. When Ashley approached the imposing mahogany doors of Gibson's, the doorman, sensing her hesitation and taking in her cheap Payless flats, stepped forward to block her path. "Can I help you, ma'am? We're fully booked tonight." Ashley's face burned with humiliation. She dug into her worn, faux leather purse and pulled out the business card. Before the doorman could read it, a massive hand clamped down on the doorman's shoulder. It was Matteo. "She is the boss's guest," Matteo growled, his eyes sweeping over Ashley with an unreadable expression. "Come with me, Miss Lawson." Ashley followed the towering mobster through the crowded, dimly lit restaurant. The air smelled of seared ribeye, expensive cigars, and old money. They bypassed the main dining floor, heading down a private, velvet-lined hallway. Matteo opened heavy oak double doors and stepped aside. The VIP room was massive, featuring a private bar, leather booths, and a sprawling mahogany dining table. Sitting at the head of the table, nursing a glass of amber liquid, was Desmond Costello. He was breathtakingly intimidating. Desmond possessed the sharp, patrician features of his Sicilian ancestry: high cheekbones, a strong jaw shadow covered in dark stubble, and eyes as cold and grey as Lake Michigan in December. He was impeccably dressed in a bespoke charcoal Tom Ford suit that stretched comfortably across his broad, muscular chest. When Desmond saw her, his hand paused in mid-air. He had expected a street-smart hustler, or perhaps a desperate junkie who had stumbled lucky. Instead, standing before him was a trembling woman with soft, round cheeks, terrified brown eyes, and a voluptuous, heavy-set body wrapped in an embarrassingly cheap dress. In Desmond's world, women were sharp, surgically altered, and heavily guarded. Ashley was entirely unguarded. She radiated a raw, desperate vulnerability that hit Desmond like a physical blow. "Mr. Costello," Ashley whispered, clutching her cheap purse tightly against her stomach to hide her waistline. "Sit, Ashley," Desmond commanded softly, gesturing to the chair immediately to his right. She practically scurried to the chair, her heavy thighs pressing against the armrests. Desmond poured her a glass of sparkling water, his eyes never leaving her flushed face. "The ledger you returned to me," Desmond began, his voice a low, melodic rumble, "contained information that, had it fallen into the hands of the Moretti family, would have dismantled my entire organization. It would have cost me hundreds of millions of dollars. And my life." Ashley swallowed hard. "I'm just glad you got it back. The men you sent, they gave me money. It paid my rent." "I'm very grateful, sir. I don't want anything else. I just wanted to do the right thing." Desmond leaned forward, resting his forearms on the table. He was fascinated. "You had $1 million in untraceable bearer bonds in your hands, Ashley. You live in a slum in Pilsen. You work double shifts. Why didn't you run?" "Because of my son," she answered honestly, a fierce maternal spark finally breaking through her terror. "I'm nobody, Mr. Costello. I'm just a fat, invisible waitress. If I took your money, I would constantly be looking over my shoulder. I can't raise Leo in fear. The peace of mind is worth more than the $1 million. Desmond's grey eyes darkened. He reached out, his warm, calloused fingers gently wrapping around her thick wrist. Ashley flinched, but he didn't let go. His thumb traced her racing pulse. "You are not invisible to me, mia cara," Desmond murmured, the Italian endearment slipping out naturally. "And you are severely underestimating the value of absolute loyalty." He reached under the table and placed a heavy canvas duffel bag by her feet. "There is $250,000 in that bag. Clean, Washed cash. It is yours. Ashley's jaw dropped. I can't take that. You will take it, Desmond stated, leaving no room for argument. But there is a condition. My enemies know a civilian found the bag before I did. They have eyes in this police department, and they have eyes on the streets. You are no longer safe in Pilsen. What? Ashley gasped, the blood draining from her face. I have already purchased a secure town home in Lincoln Park under a shell corporation, Desmond continued smoothly. You and your son will move there tonight. Matteo will handle your belongings. You no longer work at the diner. You can't just take over my life, she protested, her voice rising. I can, and I have, Desmond replied, his grip on her wrist tightening just enough to emphasize his authority, yet remaining surprisingly gentle. You saved my empire, Ashley. In my world, we protect our own. And you belong to me now. An hour later, her mind reeling and her hands shaking as she clutched the duffel bag, Ashley was escorted back to her Pilsen apartment by Matteo to fetch Leo. But the nightmare she was trying to escape had already found her. As they pulled up to her crumbling apartment building, the front door was kicked wide open. Standing on the sidewalk holding a sobbing Mrs. Higgins by the hair was Gregory. Her ex-husband looked manic, his sunken eyes bald with drug-fueled desperation. Flanking Greg were 3 heavily tattooed men wearing the colors of the Moretti Syndicate. "Where is it, you fat cow?" Greg screamed as Ashley stepped out of the armored SUV. "The Morettis know you found the Costello drop. Give me the bag or they're going upstairs to get the kid," Ashley screamed, dropping the duffel bag of money on the pavement, her maternal instincts overriding all logic. She charged forward to protect her son, her heavy body moving with surprising speed. But before Greg could even raise his fist to strike her, the deafening roar of a suppressed gunshot shattered the humid night air. Greg's knee exploded in a spray of crimson. He collapsed to the pavement, shrieking in agony. From the shadows of the alleyway, 3 more Costello Black Ops enforcers materialized, their assault rifles raised. And stepping out from the reinforced doors of a second SUV that had quietly pulled up behind them was Desmond Costello himself. He didn't look at the screaming Gregory or the terrified Moretti thugs who were now throwing their weapons down in surrender. Desmond walked straight to Ashley, pulling her shaking, heavy body securely against his chest. He smelled of gunmetal and expensive cologne. "I told you," Desmond whispered into her hair, his cold eyes finally turning to glare down at the pathetic man bleeding out on the sidewalk. "You belong to me now, and nobody touches what is mine." Lincoln Park offered a terrifying kind of silence. Inside the 4-story greystone on Armitage Avenue, Ashley paced the sprawling Brazilian hardwood floors. Her 4-year-old son, Leo, was fast asleep upstairs in a custom-built race car bed, guarded by 2 massive men wielding suppressed submachine guns. Everything felt utterly surreal to the exhausted single mother. 3 days ago, her biggest worry was stretching $20 to buy groceries for the week. Tonight, she was the ward of Chicago's most lethal crime boss. Desmond Costello did not do things by half measures. Earlier that afternoon, Matteo had delivered 3 steamer trunks of custom-tailored clothing, explicitly measured by a private designer, to fit Ashley's plus-size figure. For the first time in a decade, Ashley slipped into silk loungewear that didn't pinch her broad waist or dig painfully into her heavy thighs. Soft, emerald green fabric draped elegantly over her voluptuous curves, making her feel dangerously beautiful. Yet her mind raced with intense anxiety. Gregory's agonizing screams still echoed violently in her ears. Desmond had spared her worthless ex-husband's life, but only barely, handing him over to his interrogators in a soundproof basement beneath a meat-packing plant on Halsted Street. Standing before the floor-to-ceiling mirror in the master bedroom, Ashley studied her reflection. Her thick thighs pressed together, her belly rounded out softly beneath the silk, and her arms carried the heavy weight of years of neglect and stress. Gregory had spent their entire disastrous marriage belittling her weight, calling her a fat cow, systematically breaking down her self-esteem until she felt subhuman. Society reinforced that cruelty every day at the diner. But Desmond looked at her differently. Dinner arrived precisely at 8 o'clock, catered privately by Alinea, complete with truffled risotto and seared scallops. Desmond walked through the front double doors just as she was nervously plating the rich food. Unbuttoning his charcoal suit jacket, he looked deeply exhausted. Dark circles under his steely grey eyes betrayed the brutal, violent toll of his escalating underworld war. When his gaze locked onto Ashley, however, the lethal hardness in his expression melted instantly into something intensely possessive and warm. "Beautiful," Desmond murmured, stepping into the massive kitchen and smoothly emptying her personal space. His large, calloused hands settled firmly on her wide hips, pulling her plush stomach flush against his rigid, muscular abdomen. "Green is definitively your color, Mia Regina." Ashley flushed crimson, her trembling hands hovering nervously over his broad chest. "Mr. Costello." "Desmond. I don't understand any of this. I'm just a chubby diner waitress. You have enough money to buy an island. You could have any supermodel in the city on your arm. Why are you doing all of this for me?" "Supermodels are fragile, starving creatures who care only for my wallet and their own vanity," Desmond replied gruffly, his thumb tracing the soft curve of her double chin with undeniable reverence. "You faced down the Moretti cartel to protect your child. You refused $250,000 to keep your soul clean. You have more genuine strength in your soft body than all the hardened killers in my entire crew." Tears pricked Ashley's eyes as he leaned down, inhaling the sweet scent of vanilla body wash on her neck. "And for the record, Ashley, your body is perfect," Desmond continued, his voice dropping an octave, vibrating with raw hunger. "I am a man who appreciates substance. I want something real to hold on to at night. Your curves are a privilege, not a flaw. Never let that pathetic ex-husband of yours make you think otherwise." Downtown, inside the secure boardroom of the street, Regis, the Costello syndicate, had gathered just hours prior. Desmond had stood before his captains, declaring open war. Lorenzo Moretti had crossed a sacred line by targeting a civilian under Costello protection. Gregory had sung like a canary in the interrogation room, confessing that he owed Lorenzo $50,000 in gambling debts. When Gregory saw Ashley in the background of a local news broadcast regarding a police blockade near Daly's, he sold her location to Lorenzo to clear his markers. "Lorenzo Moretti is escalating the war," Desmond stated abruptly, pulling Ashley from her thoughts and shifting the conversation back to the grim reality of their situation. His hands remained firmly anchored on her full hips. "He knows the ledger you gave me contains the transit union routing numbers. If I drain those corrupt accounts, the Moretti family goes completely bankrupt by Monday morning. We are going to finish this tonight. You stay inside. Matteo will not leave your side for a single second." Gasps escaped Ashley's lips as panic gripped her chest. "Will they come here? What about Leo?" "My men have the perimeter locked down tight," Desmond assured her, his sharp jaw clenching with lethal intent. But Lorenzo is a desperate, cornered animal. Desperate men make loud mistakes. I am going to hunt him down before he can even think about breathing in your direction. Before Ashley could utter a protest, Desmond captured her lips in a bruising, fiercely dominant kiss. It was a brand, a physical promise of absolute protection. Then he was gone, leaving Ashley shivering in the cavernous, million-dollar kitchen, praying for the safe return of a monster who treated her like an absolute queen. Midnight brought total chaos instead of peaceful sleep. Ashley sat rigidly beside Leo's bed, clutching a heavy brass table lamp like a baseball bat. Downstairs, the sudden, deafening crash of shattered reinforced glass violently violated the quiet, wealthy neighborhood. Heavy tactical boots pounded aggressively against the hardwood floors. Matteo burst into the bedroom, his face smeared with white drywall dust and his assault rifle raised to his shoulder. "Moretti hit squad!" They rammed a stolen sanitation truck straight through the front security gates. "We need to move to the basement panic room, right now." Adrenaline instantly dumped into Ashley's system. Grabbing the sleeping Leo from his soft blankets, she crushed his small body securely to her chest. Her bare feet sapped frantically against the floorboards as she sprinted behind the towering enforcer. Despite her heavy weight, sheer maternal terror gave her wings. They navigated the dark, smoke-filled hallway, the air thick with the acrid stench of cordite and the deafening roar of automatic gunfire echoing from the grand foyer below. "Down the back stairs!" Matteo roared, firing a deafening 3-round burst over the banister to violently suppress an advancing attacker dressed in black tactical gear. Bullets chewed maliciously through the expensive drywall mere inches from Ashley's head. She screamed, curling her broad shoulders tightly over her son to shield him with her own flesh. They reached the basement landing just as the heavy steel door to the safe room slid open automatically. Matteo shoved her inside, but before the loyal lieutenant could follow her in, a high-caliber bullet caught him square in the shoulder. The massive enforcer stumbled backward with a pained grunt, dropping to one knee. Lorenzo Moretti himself stepped out of the basement shadows, flanked by 2 heavily armed, heavily tattooed thugs. Lorenzo was a gaunt, terrifying figure with slicked-back, greasy hair and a cruel, jagged smile. He aimed a sleek silver pistol directly at Matteo's bleeding head. "Leave him alone!" Ashley shrieked from the threshold of the panic room, stepping partially out of the steel doorframe to deliberately draw Lorenzo's attention away from the wounded man. Lorenzo laughed harshly, his dark, hollow eyes raking over her full figure with absolute venomous disgust. "So this is the fat, ugly pig Desmond threw his entire empire away for. Unbelievable. Grab the kid from her arms. We'll use the little brat as a human shield to walk out of this death trap." "Over my dead body," Ashley growled, her maternal fury entirely erasing all logical fear. She didn't have a gun, but her heavy, solid body blocked the entire doorway perfectly. Nobody was getting past her to Leo. Before Lorenzo's thugs could take a single aggressive step toward her, the reinforced basement window directly behind them exploded inward in a spectacular shower of broken glass and twisted steel framing. Desmond Costello dropped into the room like a vengeful, dark god. He didn't bother with dramatic speeches. His suppressed tactical pistol coughed twice in rapid succession. Both of Lorenzo's thugs dropped dead instantly. Single bullet holes perfectly placed between their eyes. Panic seized Lorenzo instantly. He swung his silver pistol frantically toward Desmond, but the Mafia kingpin was infinitely faster. A brutal, sweeping front kick shattered Lorenzo's right kneecap with a sickening crunch, sending the rival boss screaming in absolute agony to the cold concrete floor. Desmond stepped forward, his custom Italian leather shoes crunching menacingly over the broken glass, and calmly pressed the smoking muzzle of his gun directly against Lorenzo's sweating forehead. "I explicitly told you," Desmond whispered, his voice vibrating with demonic, uncontrollable rage. "Nobody touches what is mine." "Desmond, wait! Don't do it in front of Leo," Ashley begged, shielding her son's face tightly against her ample bosom, desperate to save her child's innocence from the horrors of this bloody world. Desmond froze. His breathing was heavy and ragged, his eyes entirely black with lethal adrenaline. He looked up at Ashley, staring at the soft, beautiful, terrified woman who had somehow effortlessly become the absolute center of his violent universe. Slowly, with immense physical effort, he lowered the weapon. "Matteo!" Desmond barked coldly, not taking his eyes off Ashley. "Take out the trash. Make it slow. Make it hurt for days." "With immense pleasure, boss," Matteo grunted, clutching his bleeding shoulder as he ruthlessly hauled the sobbing, broken Lorenzo away by his collar. Desmond dropped his gun to the floor and fell directly to his knees in front of Ashley. His bloody, bruised hands reached out, trembling slightly for the first time in his life, as they tenderly cupped her tear-stained, chubby cheeks. He pulled her and Leo forcefully against his broad, heaving chest, burying his face deep into her neck. "I am so deeply sorry," Desmond choked out. The ruthless, untouchable Mafia kingpin entirely undone by the agonizing thought of losing her. "I underestimated Lorenzo's sheer desperation. It will never, ever happen again. I swear it on my eternal soul." Ashley collapsed heavily against him, her full body racked with overwhelming sobs. She wrapped her thick arms tightly around his neck, finally feeling truly, permanently safe. "We're okay. We're okay, Desmond. You came for us." Months later, the dark, bloody legacy of the Moretti family was completely erased from Chicago's criminal underground. The bustling city moved on, entirely ignorant of the brutal war fought in its shadows. But inside a private, sprawling, sunlit estate in the affluent suburb of Lake Forest, a beautifully vibrant new life blossomed. Ashley stood barefoot on the perfectly manicured green lawn, watching Desmond patiently teach little Leo how to properly throw a baseball. She wore a stunning white designer sundress that perfectly hugged her full hips and proudly displayed her ample chest. The massive, flawless diamond ring on her left hand was heavy enough to physically drag her arm down. Desmond had kept his vow. He had built an impenetrable fortress of absolute safety around them, a gilded, beautiful cage where pure love permanently replaced fear. Seeing her watching them from the patio, Desmond tossed the baseball back to Leo and jogged over to his fiancée. He wrapped his incredibly strong arms securely around her thick, soft waist, lifting her effortlessly off the ground and spinning her until she squealed with bright, genuine laughter. "You are absolutely glowing today, future Mrs. Costello," Desmond murmured affectionately, setting her down gently and pressing a tender, lingering kiss to her lips. "I am completely happy." Ashley smiled radiantly, resting her hands flat against his solid chest, no longer hiding her body. "I finally feel visible, and I finally feel worthy." "You are the only thing in this world I truly see," Desmond replied intensely, pulling her close against his heart. The ruthless Mafia boss had found his perfect queen, and he would gladly burn the entire world to ash to keep her exactly where she belonged, safe in his arms. Main characters: Ashley Lawson, Desmond Costello, Gregory Harrison. Did Ashley make the ultimate mistake, or did she just secure the most dangerous guardian angel in Chicago? If you want to hear how Desmond ruthlessly dismantles her enemies in Part 3 and 4, smash that like button. Share this story with your true crime and romance-loving friends. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode of these thrilling, real-life Mafia romance dramas. Comment below what you would do.